walking. Alright. Okay. Are you walking? So thank you for waiting. I was coming from the city and heavy jam. So I think Dr. Vipul Arora has given you some introduction, and conscious machine. We don't know what is consciousness. How can you build consciousness? There are so many science fictions where robots are being presented as a possible partner. They will be able to communicate with you almost indistinguishable from a human, right? But before we look at what is consciousness, there is already many Indian text that talks about consciousness, and if you look at our most traditional and well accepted literature, Bhagavad Gita, so consciousness means that which always exists. That means we do not die. That is, who doesn't die? Suppose I say I don't die. We know that, now I am 53 and maybe at some point of time you will hear, Dr. Behera has expired. So what is that expired? And what is that expiry date? Expiry date is of this body, not I. The body from the very beginning is ephemeral, is temporary. It is sure to perish. So what is not perishable is I am. So in a second chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about consciousness, that which is immutable, indestructible, unburnt, uncut. So many ways he describes the soul proper, which in Sanskrit word is Atman. And normally, when you are situated in Atman, you become naturally fearless, because other than that, now you have a fear because you suffer from many frailties of this temporary body. For example, you suffer from hunger, you suffer from sex desire, you suffer from thirst, you suffer from so many things, but they are alien to the soul proper. So once you reach the state of soul proper, you are actually in wisdom. You are situated in knowledge. You are no more perturbed by ignorance. So we are all suffering because of the ignorance of being identified with the body. But in the end, the point is that soul doesn't have, any of these properties that we talk about, this property that you don't observe in your physical body. When I talk about physical body, your body consists of, your gross body, including senses, subtle body, including mind, and further subtle, your intellect and your pseudo identity. So all those things, most of them even we don't understand, but all of them, like for example, this body is one. You feel. Suppose somebody hits you, somebody scolds you, then you are affected. But those things are ephemeral, those things are destructive. So soul proper must be beyond what we are talking about. So now, so when we talk about a conscious machine, obviously we can't build a conscious machine because that which is eternal cannot be built anyway, by definition. The unity of consciousness that pervades your body, my body, unlimited bodies in 8.4 million different species. These unity of consciousness, they're eternal, they're always existing. So you can't create them. So when you talk about creating a conscious machine, means just like the consciousness you perceive the consciousness in your body, which is separate. So there are two categories of consciousness. One category of consciousness where you experience you as you are, which we, in philosophical term, we call qua, Q-U-A, qua, as it is. That is, I as I am. That's the ultimate state, which we call in terms of perfection. So when we talk about AI, nowadays, suppose you are driving and you have this iPhone, and you tell Siri, connect me to my home. So it finds your home phone number and calls, connects. Or you select the Google map for me to reach the Green Park Stadium. So you converse and Siri does everything. And it looks like as if Siri is your assistant, right? So many such products have come in the market, and they appear to be conscious. But are they conscious? This is the point we want to talk about. So, if you go to AI research, artificial intelligence, we have two categories of AI: weak AI and strong AI. But unfortunately, there is a group that talked about generalized AI, that is, and they think that is strong AI, but I don't agree with that. But one of the things, what is a weak AI? This video, this is an experimental setup in my lab here at IIT Kanpur. So you can see here this robot participated in Amazon Robotics Challenge, and this Amazon Robotics Challenge took place in Germany. And there you see this robot has been given a list of objects. Okay, and so this robot has been given a list of objects, and it is simply fitted with a Kinect camera, and this camera looks at all these these boxes here, and takes the snaps, understands whether the item in the list is there or not. And based on that, it selects and it puts in the packaging box. So the idea is that I gave this talk actually as part of this talk in a conference meant for school principals and school educators in Dehradun. And there the CBSE director, Mr. Ganguly, was sitting. So I asked this question: suppose you go to a shop, right, a grocery shop, and you have a list of items to purchase. You give this list to the person on the counter. He looks at the list, goes and collects each and every item and gives it to you. And this robot exactly doing the same thing, right? And what is the difference between this robot and the person who is giving you a list of items? What is your answer?
If I misspell, even then the human will be able to understand.
No, that also can be taken care of.
Yeah, but still, there are a lot of things that if I actually didn't knew the product that well and I just describe the product, computer won't be able to understand the
No, even if all these things, assume that all they are solved.
Then that's a completely general AGI. If you can understand and interact in
Okay, I got your point. Anybody else? Yeah.
From my point of view, suppose we have to take tomato or something. If we keep on that heavy item, then it will burn, it will break or something. But the robot will not understand. Person will
And that also can be taught to robot. Yeah.
So consciousness. Humans are conscious, but machines are not conscious.
Now, how do you understand that? How do you understand humans are conscious and machine is not conscious? So this, whatever we did here, what is this? This is the part of Behera. Even if you generalize, this is in a small domain, robot is able to do it. You generalize to many domains, and still, I would still say this is weak AI, not strong AI. When we talk about strong AI, that is machine as a self-awareness. Awareness that is not eternal, but awareness like we have or we in day-to-day life exhibit. So this is something that I will first take 5-10 minutes to explain this point. Okay. I will not go into details of this. One thing is that little some background. So this is a robot. Earlier in my lab, this setup used to be there. Now they have removed it. So this two overhead cameras, and this is a robot. And based on the visual feedback, the robot tries to manipulate the objects within, right? And so this particular thing, to control this, this is an architecture, right? This is an architecture. This work was done by one of my PhD students, Indrajno Sirajuddin from Indonesia. And you see that what is this? This is the visual features. They have been, kind of fuzzified. The visual features, how close it is to your the desired object. Suppose I want to hold an object like this, so this is my desired object. So as the camera is moving around in the workspace, it looks at the object and how close it is to this object. Based on that, there is some kind of fuzzification that is done, and for every instantiation of fuzzy variable, we have a PD controller, proportional derivative controller. This is a proportional gain into error, derivative gain into change in error. You have multiple PD controller, and this is the fuzzy average of the total decision. Okay, so when we do this, so this is where. So first of all, so when you do it, because we want this robot here to learn, it has to learn its own kinematics. So this is something we are very clear, because when you were a small baby, you didn't know what is your kinematics, so you moved your hands and legs, and by learning, you learned how to move your hand, how to move your leg, or how to kick a football ball, a football. So the point is that we learn everything, right? But how do you learn it? So for example, in this case, we have not answered that question, because I'm just I'll try to impress upon you that what we do actually. Here is a Lyapunov function. So what is this Lyapunov function? Because many of you don't know, even may not have the background even to understand, but let's explain. This is your control loop, right? This is your desired visual feature. So suppose you have to pick a ball, then visual feature is different. You have to pick a bottle, this feature will be different. If you pick a cup, this feature will be different, right? And then there is a feedback from the camera, and there is an error corrector loop. And this error corrector loop, you have to actuate joint velocities of this robot such that this reaches this desired loop, right? So this is a closed loop, and And wave no function is something that if you move around this loop, your total energy should minimize, or over the time it should decay, right? Because if the energy is decaying here, that means the error is converging. If energy is exploding, that means this error is diverging from each other. So this is an idea. But this idea, does machine understand? No. Who understands this idea? You, the conscious being, but not the conscious being qua-conscious. Because qua-conscious is as it is eternal. But I am conscious in a relative sense, and that consciousness tells me that this kind of energy function will help me. So once you have this energy function, the next is that I want to find out how this energy function will decay with respect to time. So rate derivative of that energy function. So over the network, if you do that, you get this particular expression, right? Again, robot didn't do it. This is my student, Indrajana. He derived it. And after he derived it, he was stuck. Because he didn't know what to do after this. So I was that time a faculty member in University of Ulster. So he came to my office. So I sat with a paper, pen and paper, and based on some intuition of my earlier work, I could figure out that this P dot should be like this. This is Messi equation. And D dot should be like this. Which robot can think like this? Okay? And after I figured out this, then I told him, please go and replace this equation, this expression here, and show that V dot is negative definite. Right? This is consciousness. Unfortunately, thousands of researchers that work in AI, they don't understand what is consciousness because they themselves are not conscious. Okay? So unless you are conscious, so this is something. Can a machine do it? If you can make a machine to do this, then you can say machine is conscious. Now what I do? I derived it and simply hard-coded this, and the robot computed. So after that hard coding,
I have a doubt. So, like, you came with this expression based on intuition of your earlier works, right? Maybe if the robot actually solved a lot of problems, maybe then like it will develop its own.
have you worked?
No, I'm not.
Have you worked?
Yeah, I actually worked on theorem programs, and recently people actually start making theorem programs which are using machine learning. So there is a black box which actually gives kind of an intuition that which particular branch it should actually pass. So it actually proves the theorems, which is essentially the kind of thing that you are doing, essentially the mathematical formula that we need to actually have a particular property. But how they actually come up with that particular formula, we ourselves don't know, because it actually based on the earlier learnings. Right? It actually learns, and based on that it actually
Yeah, please bear with me. I think that many of you are interested in all these things. I appreciate that. Actually, this is all novice argument we make. You people don't know what it is mean to be conscious, what it means to be aware. When I'm conscious, I'm aware of the space in which I'm operating. The space itself is semantics. So that's something, see, point is that if I don't know something, I cannot teach also that same thing to others. So most of the time, we like a robot, a simulated world we may bring out, but we may not be conscious of things. And yeah, this is something that's not so easy. I just because I showed you something, I want to just to demonstrate. Okay, so this is the video that didn't work there. So you see that. So you can see this same video. So you see that this robot is supposed to follow this ping ball while maintaining a distance between the ping ball and the end effector. The camera is in between this two finger, and that sees this ping ball and follows. You see, and this has been done. Of course, the robot does it by updating those p dot and d dot, that's proportional gain derivative gain, the way we learned it, but robot didn't do anything, right? So this is the point. So you may do so many things, and not only that, sometimes you people exaggerate what you do because you want to feel that you are doing something very wonderful. But I want to let you know that you must know that what you are really doing. Okay? For example, this architecture. Did that robot come up with this? Machine came up with this? You people talk about, you think that so many things we do in AI. Let me tell you, as the current AI stands, this is the second wave. First wave start 70s and die down around 90s. 90s nobody was talking about it. And now again it started, and it will surely die its own death. Let's not be under illusion. The point is that you think this machine can understand these things, even using machine learning. Many of us, we don't understand this. Okay, so I will talk these things a little later, more details. This is another thing that we also do in our group. How to teach a robot. This is called imitation learning. And for example, a teacher has to teach a robot how to dance. Let's say it's Kathak. In Kathak, you have this primitives called Bandhana, That, Salami. So what is a primitive? Primitive means a dance is a large sequence, and you are looking at a very elemental sequence, right? And you extract those elemental sequence using visual cue, auditory cue, and so forth. And then put some AI-based rule-based or some kind of machine learning algorithm, and synchronize these primitive the way they occur into the joint motion of the robot. Simple, right? This is what we and this is just I hope this works here. So you see here, you will see a robot was taught, given some demonstration, and then it is given a platform to learn from those data, right? So you have this, initial examples, and robot tries to model it using some framework. I'll show you some of those mathematics. I don't know whether I have kept it in this, but you will see those massive mathematics. So now you see that it's not doing well, and you give the robot more examples, and then see that this ball comes from randomly because it's freely hanging. It has to track. There is a tracker, visual tracker. It tracks the thing, and then it also hits it in the middle of the ball, right? So looks very nice. You see. Now how a robot can figure out? So there exists some kind of stochastic regressive dynamics, and for that stochastic that to be stable, you design a controller, and that controller has to be designed using a Lyapunov function of this structure, right? So this is done. This is the idea in conscious space. These are the ideas in the conscious space. Okay. So to show something, but after you did everything, and then to program it and put it in the system and say the robot is conscious is all nonsense. Oh, I will skip all these things. Okay, because we are running late. I will now, because the objective of this talk is of course a little different. So this is in 2007 when there was a conference in UK. I was asked by the robotist Ulrich Nemjo, who was the program chair, to give a thought experiment. What is hard AI, right? So what is a hard AI? So this is what that time. This is my thought experiment. So this is a robot that comes to your house. Let's say Alice comes to your house. Lives among your family, and after some time, it learns. And after hearing the language, it picks up the vocabulary, starts speaking broken language, becomes expert in your language. Now learns to write poetry. And not only that, receives a Nobel Prize. Okay. So the idea is this possible? Okay. So before I can talk about a machine to be conscious, whatever I have discussed from there, can a machine construct a control system that hypothesizes its own control law? We derive the control law and then hard code it in the machine. Can a machine write its own algorithm to recognize an object or a voice? Can a machine derive a unique quantum search algorithm? Can a machine be self-aware? So these are the things that you need to answer, and to be able to answer, you have to unravel yourself how to do things the way you do. And most of the time, we are not aware of ourselves. What to speak up, we can make machine aware of itself. So this is the conundrum. So now let's go a little, how to build a consciousness, right? So you see that this is our biological organism. It experiences hunger, fear, sleep, sexual desires. It can self-replicate, and it can be created. Again, even ants are created. Okay. Whereas no AI machine as of now has these properties, nor they can self-replicate, and they have no creativity. The way they are programmed, only some network you have put in, those parameters only they can tune. Right? And sometime in 1995, when I was doing my PhD, we had a concept called self-growing neural network. We didn't go further the research. Right? So now, the question is, what is consciousness? Understand it. So I told you there are two levels of consciousness. The consciousness that we perceive is temporary. Consciousness that is taught in philosophically is that is eternal. Right? So what is consciousness? So if you go to a sea beach, right, and you sit down there, you have this beautiful experience of sea tides, and that gives you soothing pleasure. And particularly if in a full moon day you are sitting on the sea beach and see this long tide, even if you are a highly depressed person, you become rejuvenated. Okay? So this consciousness is that a pattern, an emergence. This is the science talks about consciousness. Science starts with elementary level particles and says the molecular interaction gives rise to in our control theory we have this idea of emergence of behavior. Right? So you have swarms, multiple agents, and they locally interact, and globally you find a pattern emerging. And people think that's consciousness. Absolutely very stupid ideas. Because people really don't try to understand what is consciousness. They never have meditated what is consciousness. Okay? So the question is, the way the science is talking about consciousness as an emerging phenomenon, is that true? This is a big topic, and it's very tough to cover many things. So there are two things. One is pattern, the other is semantic. Right? So, you by weaving, this woolen thread, you are creating a pattern. But that pattern are generated through certain semantic idea. What is the meaning of that? That before this pattern rests on your bare body and it makes, and this pattern looks good to you, the person who started doing it, he already has the entire pattern before it manifested in gross in his semantic space. He is able to see, he or she is able to see it. So person is acting in semantic space in the beginning, before the pattern that comes in a gross level, and where you start talking about it. Like for example, imagine here, right? What is this actually? This is a combination of some colors. And then if you start arguing, oh, these colors, you put in a certain particular formula, and then this gives, such a beautiful feeling, experience. That's stupidity. The artist is already residing in a semantic space. He sees the world, and he tries to bring out that world from his own semantic space using these mere colors and this particularly this brush and like that, and gives this thing a shape to his semantic space. The semantic is driver. Pattern is a dead thing. It's absolutely dead thing. Right? Suppose you burn this will be burnt, made to ashes. But you can't burn this very idea of semantics that is already there in the artist. So I have already talked about it. So it is semantics that drives things, not the pattern. Okay? And unfortunately, because we never meditate on the consciousness part of what consciousness, the entire science is pattern driven. Okay? So what is consciousness? It has both the characteristic emerging as well as semantic. in bottom-up approach, consciousness is an emerging pattern. Because some of the things actually becomes pattern, that requires to explain. But where here, consciousness is an illusion, it's not real. Whereas in top-down approach, consciousness drives creativity. For example, artist and her artworks. Here, consciousness is a unitary whole. It cannot be reduced to mere fact. Okay? So the idea is, let's look at 2.70. This is in Krishna talks to Arjuna. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So yes, when I live in this world, many patterns will enter into my consciousness and they will try to agitate me. So when I am agitated by those very patterns, I consume myself. I am destroyed, self-destroyed. A person who remains away from such patterns, they become creative. And I have an example of one person called John Holland, who is the father of adaptive system, particularly anything you talk about, evolutionary algorithms, genetic algorithms, all those things that you talk about. John Holland, his book Adaptive System was celebrated 25th Silver Jubilee in the GECO conference in 2000. So this person, he doesn't have an email ID, he doesn't have a mobile. If you want to reach him, only way you can reach him is by snail mail or surface mail. Okay? So this itself shows some idea that those who constantly get bombarded by external patterns, they are very consumed by those patterns that agitates them. And those who remain free from such patterns, they can dwell in the innermost semantics of their Porshana and be creative. And the top-down approach, there it is, 2.17 Bhagavad Gita, that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Okay? I'm here, you are hearing, and I look probably either a crazy fellow or to some of you maybe very wonderful. And suddenly there is a heart attack, I die, I fall down, gone. Gone. So that which is driver of this very body is that imperishable soul. That's top down. Because he's there. This body grew from a single cell and became trillion cells and varieties. How many cells you have in your body? Varieties. Can you point out? What are the different cells you have in your body? Hand, leg, this is too general. You see nail, hair, bone, skin, heart, nervous system, kidney. Each one of them are made up of different cells, but we started from one cell. Miracle. And by taking shelter of speculative science, we make this wonderful natural science that is already existing to look very ordinary. This is the biggest calamity facing the present world. We cannot even make a blade of grass. talk so big. I don't know why. Anyway, so this our two gentlemen here, you talked about AI methods. They only learn patterns, my dear friend. There is no semantics. I have explained. I have given you some idea about the semantics. You know, it requires a lot of how long there is. How much time you can wait here? Feeling bored? Eh? Can I go another 5-10 minutes? Okay. So, in fact, we started almost 15 minutes late, right? So, I can go another 15 minutes. See, I have been teacher since 1990. So, this is 30 years. So if you give me an opportunity to speak, I can go on. So that's my bad habit. Okay. So current AI methods, they only learn pattern. There is no semantics. Our Dr. Arrow is working on a problem. Now also in all AI methods, particularly the cost function. We don't know how. The fundamental question of learning is that how do you learn? It's a very fundamental question. There are so many people, how many of you work or how many of you have a desire to work on machine learning? Raise your hand. So if you are working, I'm pretty sure that none of you have ever asked this question, what makes us learn? How do I learn? We are very interested to make the machine learn, but we never ask this question, how do I learn? Or why do I learn certain things and why don't I learn certain things? Isn't it? Certain things I repel. I get repelled by certain things. I get attracted by certain things. Somebody becomes a naturally cook. Somebody becomes naturally an artist. Somebody becomes naturally a computer scientist. And many, of course, try to do things here and there just to earn some money. Okay? So the idea is to answer the question, first of all, there are certain, probably a cost function that, I'm not saying that is a cost function getting optimized within us when we learn something, but invariably all machine learning algorithms, they use a cost function. And this cost function is man given, human given, researcher given. First, let us start somewhere and make a machine to learn that cost function. I want to do certain thing. And to do that thing, can I build my own cost function? And make that cost function a driver for my learning. You have to know, when you do a research, you just don't jump into a very big thing. You talk a small thing, smallest possible thing, and try to solve it. And that is my advice to you when you do research. Even if you hear a very big problem, from that problem, you extract the simplest possible one, the simplest one, and try to solve it. And solve it in a very original, thought-provoking way. Not a mechanized way. Because others have done, I will do that way. Or I'll change a little bit here, a little bit there. So you can see here, syntactic machine. All our machines are syntactic. The very fact, the computer itself is syntax, right? It's all operates zeros and ones. How wonderful algorithm you may have written, finally, when it gets processed, it's zeros and ones. Syntax. You don't process. I process semantics. Not everybody is not capable. In fact, majority of us have become like robots or machines. We have also become like syntax. Sometime way back in 1995 or 96, when particularly I was teaching in BITS Pilani, one student came and confronted me. I said, "Why you are talking about consciousness?" I said, "What is your problem?" Now I have a problem because I think my bicycle is also as much conscious as I am. I said, "You become happy with your bicycle? Why you are coming and confronting me?" Okay. So if you think your bicycle is consciousness, be happy with it. Don't fight with me. Okay. So the syntactic machines, dull, hard-coded with human-defined goals, and a loss function to be minimized. You have to, if you are doing a, supervised learning, you have to have a ground truth, and meaning is interpreted by humans, right? So machine doesn't understand what he's talking about, right? We interpret. Whereas semantic machines, we don't have a semantic machine, let me tell you. And I have been thinking about this problem since 1998, and this is almost like more than 20 years. And even I have not made head and tail of it, but we have at least have understood what is not a semantic machine. So at least some of the things that we can set for the semantic machine is that it can set its own goal and it understands its own decision. Right? That is, it semantically interprets itself. There is no need for an outsider to give an interpretation. Okay? So syntactic machine is disconnected from the source, but a semantic machine is connected to the source. This is something that I have been talking, and you see that this color blue has no meaning. When I say blue sad, it makes meaning. Okay, red has no meaning, but when I say red apple, makes meaning. So this is meaning. When I say sunlight, light and sunlight, so sunlight makes enough meaning than simply talking about light. So I'm giving a very gross example. When we talk about in detail, that is even more detailed. So in syntactic machine, we don't look at the source. Right? For example, I'm speaking. So you take this speech samples and you can completely forget me and try processing it and then transcribe it. You can do all those things. But when you hear the voice, you know I am speaking. The very person speaking is not embedded in the science itself. And that is real, tragedy of the current science. We ignore the source, absolutely. Okay? And so now the question is, can we make such a semantic machine? Okay. A radical change of perspective needed. We need semantic science. Okay. Present syntactic science has been studying the observations. Now we need to study the observer. So when I say observer and observation, I'm not talking observer, the Atman, the observer. Observer here is a detector. It's a conscious detector. It's a conscious detector. So can you do it objectively? Okay. So and this is this is a very few when we talk about Google's semantic web idea and all this, nothing semantics. It's all syntactic. Let me tell you. It's a brute force of using very high powerful machines and process immeasurable amount of data and look like they are conscious. Just like I told you, the robot which is able to, this Amazon warehouse, Alibaba warehouse, using hundreds of thousands of robots like that, and they are able to cater to the need of thousands of orders coming there every day. Okay, so those kind of things are possible, but I have told you they are not semantic machines. Okay, so can we make semantic machines? Okay, so before we go to semantic machines, so very see, whatever I will talk about, these are things that we have. I particularly, got in touch with Bhagavad Gita in 1988 when I finished my BTech. I felt empty within because I was kind of a political kind of student in interacting with everyone, and suddenly I felt that everybody is missing, so I felt very lonely, very empty within. And that's when I took a Bhagavad Gita in my hand. I started reading, and journey started. And because of that, there is innumerable encounters with the consciousness in varieties of ways. And one of the things that in 2009 I was in Switzerland as a visiting professor in University of Zurich, ETH, and I was given a professor apartment there, and I was thinking, what is consciousness? And suddenly it occurred to me that there is only one thing around us, that is consciousness, but very few can see it, and that's really kind of a eureka moment. So science starts with experience. Okay, I see experience, right? So the world is an experience for all of us. Okay, so where you see me, I mean, yeah, where you see me, you see me standing. All of you see that? Point your fingers where you see me. Yeah, so everybody sees. This is the first thing, right? And this is the biggest mistake we do. This is the biggest mistake we do. Can anybody now correct yourself? Where you see? You see within yourself. This is an estimate where I am. Okay, whatever information this object I am has entered to you through auditory media or visual media, so many ways, but finally your experience within you tells you where I am. The first mistake everybody does, even a person who gets a Nobel Prize. Why? Because we never studied Bhagavad Gita. Don't be offended by that, it's a fact. It's a wonderful literature. It's there in India. You are born in India, you have this literature. We will never care to read it. Okay. So, and what is an experience? It's a distinct sensory experience, right? Even a sensory perception, right? For example, you speak, I speak. How do you differentiate? Well, let me ask again. I'm taking some time because I'm not here interested to give a talk and get applauded. I want you people to be a little uplifted in your thinking. That's my idea of giving this lecture, but I'll not give it. So how do you differentiate between you and him? I'm saying that how do you make a distinction between you and him? There are two persons here, right?
Yeah, all my senses are actually telling there are because there's me and there's another person.
How do you make a distinction between this object and this object?
My sensory inputs are actually showing that. So basically, even the idea of self is again completely observatory. When my signals.
No, you just give the answer then.
Yeah, the sensory inputs are.
Anybody else would like to give the answer?
The working function is different.
Eh?
Working function
Based on physical appearance.
So this is the biggest mistake, because again the point is that how you know whatever you know. How you know whatever you know.
Based on experience.
And
Based on previous
very little based on experience. You have learned everything by rote. Rote learning. You took a book, accepted it. Teacher told you, accepted it. Hardly any one of you try to learn things you as a learner. Why? Because that requires to ask this question, who am I? And you never took a step, ask the question, who am I? And you killed the learner within yourself, how can you learn? It's a pattern. Everything within you, whatever you are telling, is a pattern, my dear friends. When you could decide it, but go and do little meditation, do little introspection, you will realize everything that you are is simply a series of patterns. Your likes, your dislikes, patterns. Your emotions, patterns. Because you never developed yourself as yourself. Now I will give you again, I will drop a bomb. This object and this object, that are distinct because of space. You withdraw the space, there will be no distinction. Again, what is the space? Your own experience consists of space. But these are all very, very tough concepts. One gathers, this is a journey of almost, like as I told you, since 1998. So it's 20 years. But, we have not really brought out, I talk about, but I can talk, from the podium of Bhagavad Gita a lot. But as far as the science is concerned, you have to demonstrate certain things before you can speak. But the idea here is it. So all forms of observations are only different experiences. Okay? Knowledge is only about experience, my dear friends. You have zero experience, you have zero knowledge. Okay? And most of us, we have zero experience and a lot of patterns. Different level of experience we have: physical, mental, intellectual, as well as spiritual. Okay? So, when we talk about conscious machine, we are talking only, we will, in the beginning, because when you develop a field in science, you have to minimize, you have to make the problem simpler. And the simplest problem is that we only will talk about gross physical experience, right? Now you see, any object given, okay, in terms of your experience, you have only these 5 experiences, you must know this. There is nothing. Okay? You have taste, experience, sound, touch, smell, and form. This is 5. And in Bhagavad Gita, they all are situated in 5 space. Ether, water, air, these are all concepts. Don't take the rudimentary language that I am talking about. Earth and fire. These are all 5 elements. They carry these 5 information. And these are called semantic information. So that semantic machine that we are talking about is already taught in great detail in Bhagavad Gita. And this uniquely gives me a distinct experience, this 5 space. So what is a semantic space? And this is a space which gives an object a unique identity. Okay? It provides distinction between 2 objects. It is the resting place for information object. Every object is a semantic information. Okay? Space gives every object a shape or structure. Just like, this chalk occupies a space. In that space, you cannot keep this. Right? And this space also gives a shape to it, or it has its shape in its own space. Similarly, my sound, my smell, or the smell, not my sound, the smell, sound, touch, they have their own semantic space. Okay? And so, for example, if you take an apple, your sound space will tell it is a fruit, visual space will tell it's fresh or juicy, touch space will experience its hardness or softness, how fresh, how old it is, taste space will experience its sweetness, smell space will tell its freshness from or fragrance, right? This is something that. So now, what is current notion of space? Okay, so space is the boundless 3-dimensional extent in which object and events have relative position direct. This is completely intact. Space is absolute. In Bhagavad Gita, space always emerges. There is an absolute space, but that space is beyond our approach, beyond our reach. But the space in which we are operating, the space continuously grows, and that's why we learn. Okay? And so Newton conceived an idea of absolute space, whereas Leibniz talked about a relational space. And Kant talked about the concept of space and time are not empirical ones derived from experience of the outside world. They are element of an already given systematic framework that humans possess and use to structure all experiences. Okay? But when you are born with a universal semantic space. And that space grows in terms of its association. Suppose you are born and you associate with the dons of the underworld in Bombay, you will be a different person altogether. Whereas you are born in a place and you associate with professors, teachers like that, you become a different person altogether. But everybody comes with a universal semantic space. You are born with that space. If that space is not there, you cannot be a conscious machine. So, before we can make a conscious machine, we have to first of all talk about, can I hypothesize a universal semantic space, what it is, what substance it is made up of, and where we are going to compute. Okay, how do I make a machine that will do? So anyway, these are all very tough things. Some of the things that if I have to elaborate on this, it will take all time. Properties of a semantic space. This is the resting place of all semantic objects. As I told you, object means information. Semantic information is object, right? How many objects you have in science? How many objects? You are a scientist, right? You study in IIT, right? What is a scientific object? What area you are studying? Physics. Oh, if you can't say, I can't forgive you. You should not forgive yourself. Yeah, can anybody say how many objects you have in science? Oh, wow. Which era you are in? So this is the reason also you must know. Why we talk about, whenever we talk about science, you go to any book, you will find the names. They were not Indians, right? They were all, whether it is Gibbs function, whether it is Boltzmann distribution, you talk anything, you don't find Indian there, right? This is the reason. Because somebody said, no, what did you say? Solid liquid. You know. So there are only two objects we talk in science. One is particle, the other is wave. You're a physicist, my dear friend. You should have told that. So, no, when I talk about semantic object, it's completely different. We can talk about a semantic particle, semantic wave, but I'm not interested in that. Right? It's a semantic, elemental semantic information. So that's something that we have to worry about. And as I told you, the space is not absolute. We all grow. Our space always expands. Okay? And that's why space emerges. Space is hidden in information. It takes a shape as the information gets connected to it. And these are all very, very profound concepts. I just want to. So this is in Bhagavad Sankhya, when Lord Kapila is teaching to Mother Devahuti, he talks about these wonderful ideas. In fact, this Kardama Muni, the father of Kapila, or husband of Devahuti, this is Kardama. In fact, Kardama built a mansion that has many lakes, many gardens, and this spaceship could travel in the space for years, in fact. And there is a description that says that in that lake there were artificial swans as well as real swans, and they were looking so exact or so equal to each other. The real swans are trying to hug to the artificial swans. So there, the Lord Kapila is teaching his mother, and he's telling a unit of a semantic object. A semantic object is the elemental experience, okay, and this has three components: the object, detector, and space together. Because the semantic object means the object itself must be aware of itself. How it become aware of itself? So the object is observing itself. So detector is part of the object. Okay? So this is one unit of semantic object that we are talking about, and I think I should stop many things here. There are a lot of. I go to the. I hope that this has given you some idea to think, and as you know that in a short time to give a presentation is very tough. But I've tried to do my best to give certain ideas that may. But you really want to be successful in deriving, or science equals. Let me tell you, science is an across road. The current science, with all its, grandeur, we have the problem of global warming. We have the problem of pollution. We have the problem of shortage of all kind of fuels or energy sources. So many things. And science as a crossroad, we need to have a complete science. Science that is inclusive. Why global warming happened? Because we created a science where for humans, the plants didn't exist, or they didn't matter. Other habitats, they don't matter, right? So, science at the first. We need to have a complete science. There are 8.4 million different species. All of them, they have the right to live, and they have to share the same ecosystem. And that requires a symbiotic relationship. I was teaching Bhagavad Gita in IIM Indore as a credit course. I think 2012 or 13. I went to an organic farm near IIM Indore. The person who is running that organic farm, Mr. Trike, he welcomed me and said, "Professor Saab, welcome." And he was holding a big piece of mitti, soil, and told, "What is the weight of it?" Suddenly he asked. I saw it, it's a huge thing. I said, "Maybe 3-5 kilos." And then he handed over that, and I tightened my muscle because I thought it was very heavy. And when he gave me, it looked like 300 to 400 gram maximum. I said, "Why this is light?" I said, "This is the story of my organic farm." He showed that in this particular thing, around 10 to the power 18 microbes are residing. And they had made this soil so soft, porous, you don't require any artificial fertilizer to grow things. And then he took me to another corner where I saw people were sprinkling some water, but they were looking at reddish water. So what is this? He said, "This is jaggery water." So why you are sprinkling? Nah, this is arar dal. Time has come for, more flowering and more pollination and more yield. So normally, how that happens? If you can attract the bees. So by putting this, you're attracting the bees, and they come and they help in pollination, and then you have more yield. So that is, nature has given us an ecosystem where we must learn how to lead a symbiotic life, where even an insignificant, apparently an insignificant earthworm has as much value as we think we have. So that requires a complete science, an inclusive science. It requires empathy. And I have put something there. In spite of tremendous progress in AI, in particular deep learning, all machines are syntactic machines. Our interpretations make their output meaningful. Semantic machines, researchers talk about. I have not seen anyone really working on it because they have no idea what is consciousness. They don't feel for others. At best, they may say, "Oh, humankind." I don't think that any human can survive when you have no rivers, no aquatics, no birds, no reptiles. Nobody thinks about it. There is a verse in Bhagavad Gita that says, "Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sosati na kanchati sama sarvesu bhuteshu matbhakti labhati." Sama sarvesu bhuteshu. A person who is situated in self, in Atman, he sees everyone equally, starting from insignificant microbe to most powerful emperor. Consciousness has many layers: physical, mental, intellectual, and reflected, pure and pure. Let's talk about consciousness in the physical layer, and that would be a good beginning to involve a science of inclusion, science of not selfish aggrandizement. Thank you very much. So, any one of you have any question? You can, yeah.
Sir, if you are given a
what is your point? I have already told that. What is your...
The machine can move it. If a machine can move in an animated state, would it be possible? Because if we develop the machine can develop the solution.
I am telling you that there are so many machines that are giving you solutions. But I'm giving the argument that they are not semantic. Okay? A semantic machine should be able to understand the other machines as well. Forget about other machines. Nowadays, I just concluded, we did organize one conference called Human-Robot Interactive Communication. So people are starting this question. Can we live with robots? Do you know that how robots are being used nowadays in software? Caged area, you cannot go there. Now when you talk about robots to live with you, what does it mean? Okay? It's not possible unless you understand what is semantic message. It's something that requires much more